Hi, everyone, and welcome to the NFA Podcast, the one podcast that offers you not financial advice with tips.
Lots of non-financial advice with tips. And what does NFA also stand for, which I just found out in episode 1?
Nish,
stands for?
Frackers, and everyone else.
I thought Anon.
The Nish, Frackers, and the listeners.
Yes, so Nish, introduce yourself quickly to the audience, just for the people that missed episode 1, the classic.
For sure. So my name is Nish. I have been in the space since 2018, full-time since 2020. I am in marketing and specialize in token launches and branding. As my side hustle, I am getting my master's in oral surgery. So 2 different life paths, as we said in the last episode. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. I am a crypto by day and dentist by night.
No. And here's the weird part. I'm sure that at university you tell it the other way around, that they think you do that full time and the crypto thing is on the side. But
Yes.
Here you're saying I'm crypto and then I'm also side hustle is I'm a dentist. It'd be great, by the way, if you have patients that see that they're your side hustle. Like, oh, she's doing this on the side, but it's sort of her second job.
We probably shouldn't publish this.
Be great. Oh, I got a new job from the girl that does it as a side hustle. That's awesome. So I'm Michael Frackers, in Dutch, Michiel Cornelis Frackers. It's the language of love if you have issues. I'm Dutch originally, Dutch Indonesian. I'm 56 and I live in Asia. I used to live in Amsterdam, studied in San Francisco. And I've been in this space sort of same time as you. I think we met at the same time as you were getting into it and I was getting into it. And we worked together on a project as advisors called Tracer, which has the goal to, it's a real world asset. It tokenizes carbon credits. And the low-key goal is to restore the climate and end global warming, because we like to have big goals. And so we're saving the planet, basically, but we still have time to do a podcast, which is not financial advice. Say
That's
that
correct.
again. Yes, correct. All right, so what kind of news did you bring? Because I think you have a few news items.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So, yeah, I think every week has been a big week for crypto. So it's hard to pick and choose what news items we're going to carry forward. I want to start, I know I sent you a list, but I want to start with Pain, the meme coin that raised like $35 million on a pre-sale.
How do you spell pain?
Like PAIN.
Really, pain?
Yeah, Pain, and it's Hide the Pain Herald, that meme. And
what does that
basically,
mean? I'm 56. I just said so. Hide the pain herald? What does that mean?
Here, let me Google it for you.
Explain it like you explained to your grandma.
Basically, this guy did a stock photo shoot in Europe. I think he's also Dutch, if I'm not mistaken. He basically went viral for his stock photos, and they turned him into a meme because he just always looks like he's like in pain, you know? So this is him.
Let me look.
This is
I think I've seen him.
Yes, this
It's in
is Hide the Pain
commercials in
Herald.
Holland. Yeah.
So, Hide the Pain Herald has been taken up by 9gag and their team, and they launched a pre-sale to a meme coin, which ended up raising record numbers of Solana, which is like 185,000 SOL that was sent to
When
this
did this
pre-sale,
happen?
like a couple of days ago. Yeah, it's been all over Twitter, and basically they raised so much money that they were like, we don't need all this money, we're going to send you money back. And so they're giving everyone a refund, and they're giving their tokens that they invested in, which is really cool. So that's my
cool.
first news item. The second one is that JP Morgan reported that 71% of institutional investors do not plan on trading crypto this year. Sorry, I really started with that.
71% of institutional investors does not plan on trading any crypto or investing in crypto?
Does not plan on trading crypto this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's quite
interesting. Is that a lot, or is that a lot or a little? I actually think does it mean that 29 will, or are 29 undecided? 29%.
I'm not sure, but I know that 71 are not, and that's quite a big number. I think it just shows how
you
early
showed
we
your
are.
age. I'm from the age in finance where in TradFi nobody wanted to touch crypto. So I'm already, for me, like 29% may do it. And seriously, I think it's pretty high. That's almost a third. I'm serious.
Yeah, but we're just so early, you know.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly. Yeah, but I still think that's positive. I see that as a positive, but what do I know? Theme of the podcast. What do I know? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I guess it can be taken in two ways. So El Salvador has ended their Bitcoin as legal tender, which is really interesting. It's not the best news, but I guess it shows that, again, we are still a bit too early. This.
Do you know why? Because, of course, they got so much press for accepting Bitcoin and the government holding Bitcoin or investing in Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it brought them a lot of benefits. Like their tourism was up by 20% when they announced it, just because people were like, oh, I want to spend my Bitcoin. So it's really cool. It got them a lot of traction. But what I found interesting is that the people of El Salvador in a protest burned down the Bitcoin ATM machines, protesting against it being brought in as legal tender. So El Salvador accepts the US dollar. And so when Bitcoin came in, it didn't take out the US dollar. So people were still using the US dollar.
Of course.
So, it was just added inconvenience. And then the infrastructure didn't have merchants set up to accept Bitcoin. And you're talking about like the small mom and pop shops. Yeah, it was just incomplete.
But I am fascinated also by the story about pain. Just because, of course, you went completely by me. So I'm thinking, where do you have serious news about this kind of thing? You have to follow X? You have to be on... Is that it? You have to be on Twitter? Or you don't know?
Yeah, Twitter is it. And it's so interesting because Elon wants to position Twitter as your decentralized news platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your only reliable source. And to be honest, whenever any turmoil happens in the world, if you go on X, you will see, firstly, the topic trending. Secondly, the most up-to-date news by people in that area. So it's really interesting because it shows you a lot of what, news channels won't. And I think we saw this especially during COVID, that you just can't trust the media.
I can't hate Elon for his political convictions.
No.
And it's funny, when I write in my newsletter, I write a weekly newsletter every Sunday about tech. Every time I mention Elon, I lose subscribers because I lose haters or I lose fans. Just because I say I don't care about sort of political affiliations, that's personal. I look at this work of his companies that he has. Is it an interesting company or not? Is Tesla a good car or not? Is SpaceX relevant or not? I would love him, for example, to go into, really I'm serious, to work on diseases like Alzheimer and cancer, because I think he has a different approach to solving problems, which he has proven with Tesla. Everybody said a software guy cannot do mechanical stuff. And then he did SpaceX and Tesla. So he's one of the few people that can do several things. And having been an entrepreneur in this space, I know actually that I could never do that and how tough it is. He's a different kind of entrepreneur than, say, a Zuckerberg that just goes with every administration. But anyway, that's completely off topic. But I do wanted to just say that we're going to stay on X. Me and my 7 followers and you with your Twitter space. So is that your 3 news items or you had more? So you had pain, which is interesting.
More.
You got more, go.
Yeah. Then we have Telegram and Ton. Now, on the last episode, I mentioned that Telegram mini apps were like the hype for like a month and a half. And when I say hype, I mean millions and millions of dollars poured and invested and created off of these Telegram mini apps. So it really brought in a lot of users. Now, Ton is kind of their only blockchain that integrates into Telegram, and it didn't have much use case until the Telegram mini apps. But unfortunately, they didn't sustain the hype well enough, and Telegram mini apps also started building on Sui and a couple other blockchains. So Ton lost its special, unique selling point. But now Telegram has made Ton Connect mandatory for all Telegram wallets, and they're going to suspend wallets that don't comply, which is interesting because you're kind of cornering the growth of the Telegram ecosystem and forcing people into Ton. But Ton is so difficult to build on. So I personally don't know if this is going to work out.
It's kind of annoying if they have an ecosystem they can block off and it's too centralized. It would be great if they would build a development platform that other people can build on, like they were doing, and now they're blocking it off.
Yeah.
So that seems like a limiting move.
Yeah.
Interesting to see how that works out. Very often in the long run, those things don't pan out. If you basically make your walled garden smaller by making the wall higher, historically in technology, that hasn't worked.
I know, and it's quite ironic because TON stands for the Open Network.
I was just wondering, didn't it stand for open, the O?
Yeah, exactly. And they're just walling everyone off. But to be honest, if you listen to podcasts with the founding team of TON, they didn't expect TON to actually grow the way it did. No one expected Notcoin to take TON to this level. So when the founding team launched Notcoin, they were like, yeah, okay, we'll see. And all of a sudden it picked up, went viral, and everyone was like just not expecting it. So it sounds like they didn't expect or anticipate the growth and the traction, but the back end just wasn't ready for that kind of scope, That's why it's so hard to build on. I did. You own it? I did, not anymore.
So you don't anymore? Not anymore.
Yeah.
I never have.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. I just asking, do you have? Okay. So that, I think, were your news items, right? You had a lot. Those good. Those good ones. Those were good. I only have
Your
2.
turn.
My world is smaller. So OpenAI, just in the week after DeepSeek came out, I'm sure you heard about DeepSeek coming out and it being like threatening NVIDIA and everyone else in the AI space because it was a different system. It was smaller. It could be implemented even on a Raspberry Pi, or you could run it on your own laptop. And everybody thought it'd be the end of OpenAI, at least the haters of OpenAI. And then it turns out that OpenAI is raising $40 billion at a pre-money valuation of $300 billion, which makes it the second most valuable private company in the world after, it's a drum roll, SpaceX, from Sam Altman's foe, Elon Musk. But the funny part is, and I wrote about it in my newsletter last year, I did run some numbers. So Reuters, I have to read this as well, I'm looking down. So listen to this. Anonymous sources told Reuters last year that OpenAI revenue will rise to $11.6 billion this year in 2025, compared with an estimated $3.7 billion revenue in 2024. So you think that's great, right? So it's from 3.7 to 11.6 billion. Losses could be as high, though, as $5 billion in 2024, depending on their spending on computing power, data centers, etc. Now, if this operating margin doesn't improve, it means that, and I calculated this, OpenAI will lose about $15 billion this year, which is 41 million a day, 1.7 million per hour, and I always like to calculate it per second. It's $476 of loss per second. So still, while it is on track, apparently, according to Reuters, to do that, it still raises $40 billion at a valuation of $300 billion. So basically, yeah, it's a very, very valuable company, but SoftBank is putting money in, which is funny because SoftBank was also the big funder of WeWork all the way to the bankruptcy. So, and both companies are putting money in Stargate, the big infrastructure project, rumored to be $500 billion in the US to build extremely large data centers and AI infrastructure, but both don't have the kind of money that they've committed, which is really cool. So SoftBank says they will put $40 billion, maybe something up to that level in OpenAI, and each will pledge $15 billion in Stargate. None of them have the money. So Elon Musk said they don't have the money, and I think he's right because if you just look at, so the only funny thing against it again is that SoftBank owns ARM chips, which is a really high valuable company because of AI, and they could leverage that stock, that asset, 90% of ARM they own, and then raise money in debt to put it into OpenAI, who will then put it into Stargate. But in Dutch, we call that a vlek in a vlek. It's like a dirty stain into a dirty stain. You're rubbing a dirty stain into another dirty stain. So I love Dutch expressions. So that's OpenAI. And the other news item I just thought was funny was Palantir.
Before we move on, I do have a question. Sure. How do you feel about this DeepSeek versus OpenAI stuff that's going on?
I think DeepSeek is way overrated. First of all, it's not open source. Everybody who says that doesn't understand what open source is. It's open weight. They have not released the source code, nor have they released the training data. So no one knows if it has been trained. Second thing is, the guy, the CEO of DeepSeek, I wrote about it in my newsletter last week. He used to run a hedge fund called Highflyer, for which he bought a ton of NVIDIA equipment and ran all kinds of algorithms. Super smart guy. Nothing against that. But we don't know how much he used of Highflyer's algorithms and equipment to build DeepSeek. And it's not exactly like China is famous for its, critical news media. So we don't really know. So we have to believe that they spent 5.2 million or 5.6 million. It's completely unclear what costs are included in that. But what would be great, I think, if they would really release it open source, because then Asia and Europe could build together or separately, could build applications on their own LLMs against OpenAI, Meta, Google, and you name it. So I think if China really wants to hurt the West, especially America, it should release it open source. So, and then be like Linux, which was open source, and then you have a company like Red Hat that built applications and services for Linux, was still sold for $35 billion to IBM. So you can build a big company on top of open source. But I don't think that that's the way it's going. I think it's sort of half-assing it.
But it did kind of show that U.S. tech stocks are a bit overvalued, So.
I will argue against that, ma'am, because I will tell you some things I invested in No, I agree. We'll get to that in the next segment. So again, second news item was Palantir. This is the founder and CEO, Alex Karp of Palantir. One of my favorite companies, most interesting companies, I should say, and favorite stock.
Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right, our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
This was him doing the earnings call to analysts. That's why I thought it was great. He just goes off. They had record quarters.
So what's the company name?
Palantir.
Palantir. I haven't even heard of them.
So they are founded by Peter Thiel, who's one of the biggest gurus and Svengalis in Silicon Valley, who was basically Mark Zuckerberg's coach, one of the smartest people, much hated as well by certain people for his political convictions. Again, I'm from Amsterdam. I'm so far left that for me, everybody's far right for me. If I would hate people for being on the right of me, I'd be alone in this room. Yeah, I'd be lonely. So I just don't judge people by their political conviction. And the guy has been an amazing investor. So Peter Thiel and Alex Karp started Palantir. And the great thing about Palantir that I want to explain quickly is how they develop stuff. So there's a great blog post, which I will link to in the show notes, from a guy that works for Palantir for years. So they were completely different. They work, for example, at Airbus, the airplane manufacturer. They sent FDEs, 4 deployed engineers, to Airbus. The guy spent a year there at Airbus, documenting everything that how Airbus works, sending it back to main headquarters where there are PDs, product developers, PDEs, product development engineers, that then turn this knowledge that the FDEs, the forward deployed engineers, give back to the headquarters and turn that into software. So they make customized software first, then turn it into standardized software for the whole airplane industry and probably for other manufacturing industries. So the way that they develop software is completely different, which I found fascinating, and also how they hire people. The CEO does a 10-minute chat with some people, and he doesn't talk about work. He only asks them a question, and then he sees how they answer it. So Alex Karp is a very different kind of guy, but I find him very interesting. And
I love that.
Yeah, they had record quarters. Yeah, it is very, very fascinating. So yeah, I only had 2 news items, but those were 2, and I just wanted to highlight Palantir here because it's one of the most secretive companies in the world, and they work with governments. But I don't think you would hate them for working with governments. Apple sells iPhones to government. Microsoft sells software to government. Now we have to hate Palantir because they sell software to governments. I just find it completely crazy. I just don't understand why. And especially like he says, we sell it to Western democratic governments. Well, hate them for that. If he would sell it to North Korea, then I'd be concerned. So
I got a call from North Korea the other day.
I saw that. I saw that you put on Instagram. It could be rerouted. It could be my people finding you,
Maybe.
So anyway, I wanted to go to the market spotlight, and we end with that. So I wanted to know what you are doing right now in stocks. What do you have with stocks or in crypto? What is it that you have that you want to highlight? Not that you have to share your portfolio. We'll do that another day.
So
is there
a couple
something
things
that you find interesting? Yeah.
Well, I love my meme coins, but I think those are a bit too high risk to even talk about here.
Sorry.
Because this is not financial advice.
No. Why? You can mention high risk. Why not? If you think it's interesting.
Well, actually,
This is a
really
safe
funny
space.
story. My little box. It's actually quite funny. So I have this friend that they were one of our clients back in like 2021, and basically he messaged me and he goes, "Hey Nish, I have a community takeover. The dev rugged and the community is taking over the project and we need to like get it off the ground. Yeah. So anyway, the dev rugged and the community's taken over. The market cap is at like 20,000 when I got in. But basically I've been on that, and my yes or no, I stuck my hands out. This one was a yes and this one was a no. And I went to my dog and I said, should I get in? The hand that you touch is what I'm going to do. I ended up getting in, and it's been quite good so far.
How did you do it? You have your hands up like this and then?
No, like this. And I'm like, give me your paw, and then she'll choose a hand. Oh. Yeah.
I thought you had like a snack in one of the two. My dog only does anything for a snack. So I'm thinking Nala would only go for the one where she, smells the snack. But this is great decision making.
Yeah, she's a bit too like hyper mentally. So she just goes.
And it's been good?
Yeah. It's now at like a 31,000 market cap today.
What is the name of the token? What is the name?
You're gonna love this. This will go up.
Can't wait.
No, that's it. This will go up. That's the name.
Wait, that's the name of the token? This will go up?
Yeah.
Your parents invested a lot in your education. I keep thinking of your mom. I've met your mom. Now I'm thinking, first thing I said to your mom is like, I'm so happy Nish went back into dentistry. It's like, it's a waste of talent to be in the crypto space. I have no other skills, but Nish can help people. She's a doctor. And mom agreed with me. But here we are. You're spending your time on this. This can go up, or this will go up?
This will go up. And the little ticker is a balloon emoji. So it doesn't even have letters in the ticker.
I was going to ask, what's the ticker? It's a balloon emoji.
It's a balloon emoji.
So if I have to look for it on CoinMarketCap or on CoinGecko, I have to type the balloon. I have to find the balloon symbol.
Yes, that is...
Yeah, and they probably will do better. They will probably do better than Trace or anything that we do ourselves, which actually, aims to decarbonize the planet and save humanity and all living species.
Yes, but my dog chose this token for me. That's not
you chose the dog. That says a lot.
I did.
And another one? Do you have another great one, or what do you got?
I do, yeah. So I'm super bullish on Sui and I'm super bullish on Solana. Both of them, I feel, have really high conviction plays. To be honest, with Sui, I think with any blockchain in this kind of cycle, you have to know when to sell. So like set your target. Right? Yeah.
I think everybody agrees that Sui and Solana are both like real projects, great platforms with a lot of potential. But what does that mean from an investor perspective? It's tough. Do you get in now, or is it already overvalued?
I think we're still early, because I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you were at Token 2049 in Singapore, but after that they had Solana Breakpoint. And at Solana Breakpoint, every major bank and institution promised to build on Solana over the next 5 years. So for me, I feel like Solana is a long-term play for me, but Sui is more of a short-term, this cycle play.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's my take.
Some people see Sui as the successor to Solana or the next one, or other competitor of Ethereum. Again, they're in that space, right, where people see that these are the two competitors to Ethereum. But I don't know. It's like you said, it's early. We'll find out. Okay, interesting. Exactly. Sui and Solana, but Solana would be the long-term hold, and Sui is the short-term.
Yes, but not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Talking about not financial advice, Palantir. So I was just talking to our engineer, Nicholas. And this is not bragging, because I also showed him the loser. So there's 3 stocks that I noticed that were interesting last summer. So I bought Palantir in at 24 in June. It's now at 107. So that's really nice. Actually, we just looked. I wrote this yesterday. We just looked. It was at 113. So it went up like almost 5 times, more than 4. Palantir stock went up 392% in the last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Versus in the last 5 years, 1,069%. Pause for effect.
That's insane.
Up this year, which is 5 weeks in, 42%. However, it has a PE ratio of 570. 570.
What's the PE ratio?
It's the profit to earnings ratio, which means at the current price, it will take 570 years for the company to grow into the current valuation. So the only way to sustain it is by having Alex Karp, Mr. Let's celebrate with friends. He looks like he's crazy, but he's not. He's brilliant. Have extremely high revenue growth while not lowering the profit margin. The operating margin has to be high, stay at least as high, and then increase revenues. It sounds horrible when you say he, it's like it's him alone coding everything. But the company is doing amazing. But I do want to say, this is not financial advice because Palantir's PE ratio is 570. And I've never bought any stock at any PE ratio over 100. And I bought NVIDIA, which is the other thing I still believe in. I still believe in NVIDIA, even though it's been taking a hit, because I think, here's my reasoning. Not financial advice, but even if DeepSeek works and that model works, as well as people hope it does, it means that that's like Jevons paradox that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella said. It's basically when the ocean rises, all the boats rise on it. NVIDIA is the biggest boat. They have a whole fleet of other chips other than the high-performance ones in the lower market areas where they're also market leaders. Yes, they have AMD as competitor, but they're still market leader. They will still kick ass in the whole section. If AI expands with such the AI market expands with such a innovation like DeepSeek, then actually NVIDIA will benefit the most again, which is why I think it is insane that NVIDIA got punched so hard. Also there, I bought NVIDIA stock last June for 113, and I just looked at Nicholas now at 118. It's like, it sucks. The worst one, I can say this, Supermicro. This is the third one I bought in June. I bought Supermicro and I bought it at 44. It's now at 33. Micro, I thought would be another one that would benefit greatly from the AI rise. But then their accountant quit just before the earnings report was supposed to come out.
No.
Ernst & Young said that there were hints of fraud, if I'm right. Hints of fraud or some malversations that were so bad that they had to leave as the accountant of Supermicro. So then the stock just tumbled.
God.
It's slowly climbing. So again, not financial advice. I'm giving you this breadth. Why I think Palantir is a stock that benefits as software because of AI. They're the best at mining big data and utilizing AI technology for their customers' applications, what the customer wants. That's what's really interesting, what Palantir really does. Very underrated company, no one knows. So, and it's still, I think not expensive. So I'm holding. If I think it were too expensive, I would sell, but I'm not. But again, not financial advice. And Supermicro, obviously, there was a gamble that went nowhere. And third, final thing is the NVIDIA thing. I still think it will be great. But there are a lot of people that think that Apple will actually benefit most because they don't have AI tools. Other than Apple Intelligence, which is sort of like saying, you're the fastest guy in the one-legged horse race. It doesn't mean much. Apple really doesn't have exposure to AI, and therefore people say we'll do great. I think Apple will get hurt because of the trade war, the tariffs, and China is the second biggest market after the US. So I don't think that looks good for Apple.
Interesting.
Even though they have a really, really great product line coming out, but that's for another day. So thanks. Those are my, I don't say tips, right? Those are my takes. There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
There you go.
It's my third language. Those are my takes on the market. And in crypto, I am looking to get back in if the correction goes a little further down. If it doesn't, then I screwed myself out of the crypto market. But I'll think good and well about what you said about Sui and Solana.
Sounds good, but not financial advice.
Not financial advice. The links, the stuff we talked about that we can link to, that we find the links back to, we will put on a webpage that we'll have to still find, maybe on my website for now, but we'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. And on that note, future meme coin billionaire, I say goodbye, and to the listeners and viewers. Until next time, see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.